Everyone. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to go over the song that you were asked to look at in the week 3 discussion. If you remember, that song was Down in a Hole by the band Alice in Chains, written by Jerry Cantrell, who is one of the guitarists for the band. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. All right. So this is one of my favorite songs. I love how beautiful it is, both in terms of just the poetry of the lyrics, just reading it like a poem, as well as the musical nature of it when you hear the recording of the song. It's very melancholy, haunting melody, and I think it's just beautiful. If you haven't listened to it and you're interested in listening to it, I do suggest it. It's a pretty slow, mellow song, and it just sometimes it can hit you, get you in your feels. But I would watch or listen to their unplugged version of it. I think it's even better than the original recording. That's just me. But either way, it's a beautiful song. I also love this song because it's so open to interpretation. You can read through these lyrics, and everybody will have their own idea of what the song is about, which is true for most songs. But in this case, every interpretation could be right. It's almost abstract in that way. Like when you look at an abstract painting, anyone who looks at that painting, each person is going to have a different reaction to it. They're going to have a different interpretation of it. And none of them are wrong. Or like when two people are standing outside looking up at the clouds, and both of them are looking at the same group of clouds, and one person sees a dog and the other person sees a fish. And they're just clouds, so neither of them are technically right, but neither of them are wrong either. They both see what they see. It's their interpretation of that abstract thing. And this song is very similar in that way. You can read through it, and every person is going to take away something different from it. And there's, a lot of songs, you don't get that opportunity. For instance, when we looked at Master of Puppets last week, you can look at that song and you can think, oh, this is about a toxic relationship. One person in the relationship is, abusive, and the other one is, submissive and codependent. And that's not necessarily wrong, but we learned that that's not quite right either. Because even though that feeling, that vibe of toxicity is definitely there, there are specific lines in that song that show us without doubt that the song was about drugs and addiction. We don't get that focus, that focal point, that definitive clue in this song. It's not there. It's written in a way that can be relatable to almost anybody for a variety of reasons and scenarios. And I think that's what makes it so lovely. So much poetry in it. It's very beautiful. It's beautiful to read. It's beautiful to listen to. And it's so full of possibility. Now, I am going to tell you what the actual inspiration was for the song, because there was a specific thing that prompted Jerry Cantrell to write this song. And it's a song to his girlfriend. So he's out on the road with his band, Alice in Chains, living that rock star lifestyle. And, so many people assume that that lifestyle is just, awesome. Glitz, glamour, fame, fortune. Who wouldn't want to live that? Everybody's dream. But we've also seen in the week one discussion on Wanted Dead or Alive that there are drawbacks to that lifestyle. It can be very lonely and isolating and exhausting. So he's out on the road and he has this girlfriend who he cares about deeply, but he's not there for her. I mean, what kind of a relationship do they really have if he is on tour all the time? You know, is there really anything there? And he felt guilty. He felt bad that, he couldn't be there for her, that this was the life he chose, the path he chose. And despite how much he cared about her, it meant he couldn't be there for her. It's not a breakup song because not, at least not literally. They were together for I believe a couple years still after he wrote the song. But this was how he felt about that relationship and just his guilt for not being there for her. But yet at the same time, not guilty enough to change it. This was the life he chose. This was what he loves doing. His band relies on him, right? I mean, it's not like it's an easy thing to just say, oh yeah, I'm gonna give it all up because I love you that much. Maybe, when the right person comes along, those decisions get made. But, in this situation, he cared for her deeply, but this was the reality of his life. And even though he wasn't going to change it, that doesn't mean that he didn't feel bad for putting her in that position and not being there for her, like not really being present and accounted for in the relationship. And so maybe, now that you know that, you can think back and look at the lyrics and kind of say, oh, yeah, all right, I guess I kind of see that. If you look back at the lyrics and you're like, yeah, I still don't see it. Don't feel bad because again, there's nothing concrete or specific in these lyrics that would ever indicate that that was the inspiration, that that's what the song is about. He writes it in a way that it can mean many different things to many different people. Let's take a look at the song, go through it, and we'll see if there's any points where we can kind of see the true inspiration. And then we'll talk about other possible interpretations of it. And then we're going to look at the poetry of it as well. So it says, bury me softly in this womb. Interesting. A womb is obviously where a baby develops. It's a place of comfort and security. It brings forth life, it grows life. Bury me softly in this womb. Like that's where he wants to be. He wants to be in a safe, warm environment. I give this part of me for you. So does it mean I give this part of me, the song I'm writing, I give this part of me to you, my feelings, right? Stand, rain down, and here I sit. Okay, that's interesting. Sand rains down. It's raining sand. Whenever I hear that line, sometimes it makes me think of like the sand in an hourglass, time, right? So sand rains down and here I sit. Time keeps passing by quickly. Here I sit, holding rare flowers in a tomb in bloom. So he's sitting there, sand raining down, he's holding flowers, he's in a tomb, and the flowers are in bloom. So there's this juxtaposition here of something that is beautiful and lively, rare flowers in bloom, but yet we're in a tomb. That's almost like deathly. Interesting juxtaposition. And then the chorus. Oh, wait, first, let's go back to holding rare flowers in a tomb again. That could give a different interpretation of the sand raining down. Like I said, when you first read that line, sand rains down in here, I said, sometimes I think of the sands of an hourglass, like passage of time. But then you get the tomb reference, and then it almost makes you think of like dirt being shoveled onto, into a grave, which goes along with the two, like there's something very sad and dark, not sinister dark, like emotionally dark, happening in that first verse. Then we get the chorus, down in a hole, again, it's like a grave, right? Down in a hole, and I don't know if I can be saved. All right, so maybe he's not dead yet. But, holding, man rains down in here, I said, holding rare flowers in a tomb in bloom. It's almost like he's in a death pose, holding flowers, right? But then he says, down in a hole, and I don't know if I can be saved. Well, if there's any chance of being saved, then you're not actually dead yet. So maybe that's just a metaphor up there in that first verse. Feeling dead. And then this desire to be in the womb, it's really something more emotional to me, like not a literal physical death, or literally holding rare flowers in a tomb. It seems more of an emotional thing. But down in a hole, and I don't know if I can be saved. See my heart, I decorate it like a grave. Oh, yes, it is emotional. It's his heart that is dying. It's his heart that seems to be in that dark place. You don't understand who they thought I was supposed to be. Look at me now, a man who won't let himself be. It's almost like people had this idea of him. And either he hasn't lived up to that, or he has tried to live up to it, but it turns out that's not really who he is. Look at me now, a man who won't let himself be. Almost like I can't be who I really am because I've spent so much time being who they think I was supposed to be. Interesting. But certainly there's an internal struggle there. And down in a hole, feeling so small, down in a hole, losing my soul. And I'd like to fly, but my wings have been so denied. It's almost like he wants to transform, metamorphosize. I'd like to fly, but my wings have been so denied. He can't fly. That mean he's stuck. Or doesn't mean he was, whoever they thought he was supposed to be and that he's tried to be. Let's just relate back to a man who won't let himself be. Like I'd like to fly, but my wings have been so denied. I've spent so long trying to be who others thought I should be. Down in a hole, and they put all their stones in their place. Again, it's like covering up the entrance to a tomb, death. But remember, that was about his heart, right? See my heart, I decorate it like a grave. So down in a hole, and they put all the stones in their place because heart is being bricked up. I've eaten the sun, so my tongue has been burned of the taste. I think this could be, the sun is hot, bright, brilliant, gold. Does it mean that he has eaten the sun being his lifestyle, that celebrity, that success, right? I've eaten the sun, so my tongue has been burned of the taste. I got it. So it was so intense that now I can't even taste it. So all of this, these bright, shiny things, it doesn't even, I got it. Too much of it, too intense. And now it's like, I can't even recognize it. It doesn't even register anymore. Or it overwhelmed my senses so much, my tongue has been burned of the taste, so I can't taste anything else either. Right? So maybe thinking about the actual inspiration for the song, his celebrity, his fame came so fast, with such intensity that he's now it's almost like he's desensitized to anything else as well. I have been guilty of, you know what? I wonder, I suppose I've eaten the sun, so my tongue has been burned to the taste. I don't know. I think that it's very possible if you read that as an indication of drug use. I don't think that would be wrong either. Anyway, I have been guilty of kicking myself in the teeth. Like I've been known to be my own worst enemy. I will speak no more of my feelings beneath. Done. And then we get chorus again, down in a hole, feeling so small, down in a hole, losing my soul. I'd like to fly, but my wings have been so denied. And we get this sort of refrain here at the end, bury me softly in this womb. Oh, I want to be inside of you. I mean, that could be the womb. That could sort of be like an intimate sexual reference, or both. I give this part of me for you. Oh, I want to be inside of you. Sand rains down, and here I sit, holding rare flowers in a tomb. So it's almost like he is mourning something or someone. Is he mourning himself? He says, in my heart, I decorate it like a grave. Or does he feel like something else has died and he's decorating his heart like a grave in like memory, like in as a memorial to the thing that had died? There's just so many references, but I think if you know what the song is actually inspired by, and read through it, you can there's definitely a feeling of a relationship ending. How? That's not entirely clear. Has someone literally physically died? Maybe. A lot of death and grave references throughout the lyrics. Is it an emotional death? Maybe. Is it just a relationship, marching towards its inevitable conclusion? Sure. I think there's, tons of possibilities with this song. Whenever I have listened to it, I get, you don't understand who they thought I was supposed to be. Look at me now, a man who won't let himself be. And then I've been guilty of kicking myself in the teeth. I will speak no more of my feelings beneath. And then this down in a hole, feeling so small, down in a hole, losing my soul. I'd like to fly, but my wings have been so denied. I have very much connected this song to addiction and just self-destructive people. It has hit me hard in that respect in different times of my life with different people that have been in my life. And so for me, this song always always makes me think of an addict of some sort, any sort, who is so buried by the addiction. Again, kind of that reference to Master of Puppets, that they can't be who they're supposed to be. They um, you know, they're down in a hole and they cannot get out of it. They'd like to. I'd like to fly, but my wings have been denied. They don't know how to get out, or they're afraid to get out, because sometimes, even though being down in the hole sucks and it's awful, at least it's familiar and you know what you're going to experience down there. Whereas if you try to climb out of that hole and into the open, bright sunlight, can you handle it? What's worse, the unknown or the familiarity of a living hell, basically. So I think there's so much possibility with this. I think just depression fits. Other types of mental health struggles fit. The death of a spouse fits. Maybe the death of a child would fit. I think he writes it in such a way that, it's so unique in that respect. You don't get a whole lot of songs out there that can truly be interpreted different ways, that there's nothing in the song that you can look at and say, well, I thought it was about this, but clearly it's not. It's about this. You don't get that in this song. It's so open. That's one thing I love about it. It's unique in that respect, beautiful in that respect. The other beautiful thing is the imagery. And imagery is something that is used all the time in poetry, because, poets have a small amount of time to get the impact that they want. It's not a short story. It's not a novel. It's not a play. It's a poem. And sometimes those poems are short. So you have to use all these different techniques to try to create a vibe, to get your reader to envision what they need to envision in order to really understand the poem. So imagery is are words, phrases, passages that utilize the five senses in some way, and they create a mental image, something you can visualize or experience in your mind. And this song has got quite a few. I mean, bury me softly in this womb. Like, I can feel that. I can, picture that. Sand rains down and here I sit. I can imagine that. Holding rare flowers in a tomb in bloom. See my heart, I decorate it like a grave. Kind of a weird image, but I can visualize it. See. Down in a hole, they put all the stones in their place. I can visualize that. And then this crazy bit of imagery, metaphor, probably. I've eaten the sun, so my tongue has been burned of the taste. That's the really, I love that, those two lines together as that is poetry. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I've eaten the sun, so my tongue has been burned of the taste. That is poetic imagery at its finest. I really don't know exactly what it means, but it gets me every time. I do think it has something to do, though, with the brightness and intensity of the sun. And when you burn your tongue, you can't taste or enjoy anything else. I think there's something to that. But lots of imagery, very poetic, inspired by something very specific, but you would never really be able to gather that just by reading these lyrics. That is what makes this song lovely, so unique in that way. So I think that's it. It's really, these are the highlights of it. Go ahead and move on to step 2 and answer the questions for the journal. Make sure that you do answer each of the questions fully and thoroughly. And if you have any additional thoughts about the poem that you'd like to share once you've answered the questions, please feel free to do so. Okay? If you have questions or run into problems, definitely reach out. Otherwise, I look forward to reading your responses.